on being in psychiatry for over 6.00 years, ADHD related. So this was over 6.00 years, consecutive years, before present. Today is Saturday, January 2026, and let's see, it was like February, March maybe, 2013. Okay, I'll go March-ish. 2013 to approximately October 2019. I have ADHD. I was diagnosed with mild severe ADHD, and psychiatry was required, me being in psychiatry, for the treatment, which was optional. My symptoms, while mild to severe, I was not somebody who there's some people who require medication, and then there's some who it's kind of optional, and so mine was optional, and so I chose to go through it for over 6.00 years in consecutive years. And so here I, Tanis Coralee of Seattle, reflect on what it was like being in psychiatry for over 6.00 years. As part of my optional treatment and medication for my ADHD, I included in my reflection what it was like traveling internationally during that time. Yeah, so I've talked about this previously, my ADHD and medication and stuff like that. This is kind of taking it in a different, what was life like and what was the psychiatry component of that. So when people go, what is psychiatry? So I'd say psychiatry is the healthy medium of, there's like, it's like the standard kind of default mode if one goes in for a cup of coffee. It's just like, well, I'll just take a cup of coffee. No added anything. And then if one gets like, so it's got dark brown roots. And then if like foam is added on top, or milk or cream or whatever, it could be called a foo-foo coffee. And so the foo-foo coffee is like super diluted. That's psychology. And then there's like the blonde roast, the highest caffeine content, and that's neuroscience. And so they all kind of deal with the brain and how the brain functions, which is an organ in the top of the head. It's relatively, it's relatively small in terms of total percentage of body weight. And as someone who works with my heart, the heart organ, it's a person can be brain dead and still alive, whereas it's not true the other way. So the heart, my bias is for the heart being the most important organ. It has a brain of its own, speech generation of its own. I find out with my cardiology self-experimentation. But so psychiatry essentially is kind of like the medium. So psychology can be just like somebody who reads a paper and it's like, all right, now I know about the brain. Psychiatry is, there's actually required like licensing, and it comes with the medication part. So it's like essentially psychology plus chemistry. So it's like it's the heavy hitter. They got the meds, they got the science, kind of, and they got the patient. Whereas in neuroscience, they might not really ever interact with the patient one-on-one. And so I interacted with my psychiatrists. I had one in Hawaii and then one in California. And it was good for me, I'd say. So for my ADHD, I had Adderall, or the generic equivalent, which is a medication with very severe side effects. And so as part of it was something I didn't anticipate, was like the amount of self-tracking and self-observation I had to do as part of my psychiatry. Is like every time I went in, and depending on what time of year it was and where I was in life, it would either be like once every 3 or 4 months or once a month. I would go in and see my psychiatrist. And like it would be, there was a procedure where there would be, my psychiatrist would hand write out the script. So prescription is written on a script, and I would have to read it, and then it would be photocopied for documentation and stuff like that. Like it's a very well documented, and then there were notes taken on me and how I was doing and how I was doing with the medication, how my brain was functioning, how my heart was functioning. So Adderall is a drug and its generic equivalent that affects the human heartbeat. So for my cardiology self-experimentation, that mattered as well. But it was a very, it was intensive compared to like some prescriptions. It's like going to the doctor. I mean, I need something for, whatever, like common cold, or I don't know. And it's just, place the order, go to the, like, send it to the pharmacist, and you're good to go. This was no. You want to go to that pharmacist, you come see me, you sit down with me for an hour, we're gonna talk, and I'm gonna write the script, you're gonna read it, I'm gonna photocopy it, save the notes, save the script documentation, right, as part of tracking the medication. So it was I got used to being tracked, being observed, being, it wasn't Shutter Island level, if you've seen that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, but it was intensive, and I cared, but did it matter when I traveled internationally? And that was actually one I decided not to broach. I decided not to take my medication with me. Why? Because my medication was optional. There was, however, if traveling with medications, I had to take, at that point in time, I did look up, so I went to Scotland in July 2019. They did require procuring of the prescription. So not the script goes to the pharmacist, and then that kind of thing. And then you can get the bottle with the prescription on, sticker on it. So I was it would have required documentation. However, I decided not to take it because medication was optional for me. Is optional. And I've learned to adapt without the medication, and I've covered that before a number of times. So this is kind of the psychiatry component of my psychiatrist was okay with me traveling without my medication. So I didn't, as in this duration, I didn't digress in the sense of, or get worse, not digress. I didn't get worse and actually need medication required for travel. So there we go. So I'm being in psychiatry for over 6.00 years, ADHD related.